afternoon, and thank you very much for coming here on such a lovely day. I'm sure you, like me, would rather be out in the garden. I'm Andrea Allen. I'm a former modern languages teacher. I actually used to teach here in Baschurch when it was secondary modern school, and then it became Corbett. My brief, according to what I got from Julian, was UKIP and the Fairer Society, equality, food banks, how we see UKIP steering Britain in the years ahead. So that's what I'm going to talk about. We believe in Britain. We believe we're big enough to make our own laws in our own parliament. We should have the sovereign right to control our own borders. We should be fiscally responsible and stop adding to our national deficit and our national debts and leaving our children and grandchildren to pay the bill.
May I ask the panel, what are the moral and strategic merits and demerits of reclaiming trade?
Well, we believe that defence of the realm is the first priority of government. Faced with rogue states such as North Korea and Iran, which have developed advanced nuclear capabilities, UKIP does not believe that now is the right time to be talking about proposing nuclear disarmament, and we support climate renewal. We believe you speak softly, but carry a big stick.
What is the role of government in leading the moral and ethical life of the country?
I believe that government should be an example of good order and conduct. It's only by our strict observance of the laws in our own conduct that we can reasonably expect other people to obey them. I think we should be rewarding good behaviour and not punishing it. And I think that there is a lot we can do to help people who do the right thing and encourage people to do the right thing.
As we celebrate the 800th anniversary of the Great Charter that established the defences of the British citizen against abuse of power by the state, we're increasingly being absorbed into a new state called the EU. How does the panel view the recent opt-in to the European arrest warrant that effectively sets aside the right of habeas corpus and the practice of certain EU officials, security police and others being given immunity from prosecution and thereby putting themselves above the rule of law that was the prime purpose of Magna Carta?
Yes, we set up the Human Rights Act and we set up the Human Rights Courts in Europe because they didn't have the tradition that we had of rights being enshrined. We had habeas corpus. We had the Magna Carta, which said we couldn't be extradited unless we'd appeared and had evidence presented before a court of our peers. But now, as long as the paperwork is okay on the EAW, you can be extradited anywhere for a crime that might not even be a crime in this country. And I think that is not protecting the rights of the British people. Common law, we have common law in this country which says that everything is permitted unless there is a law to stop it. On the continent, thanks to Napoleon overtaking the continent and having his own Napoleonic code, everything is forbidden unless there is a statute that allows you to do it. And to my mind, that enshrines the rights of the state over the individual, whereas common law enshrines the rights of the individual against the state. And we are losing common law because the EU continental system is taking over and takes precedence over common law.
The Hustings crossroads have been a trouble spot for many years, despite the introduction of a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit. Its perceived danger and the length of waiting time at peak periods means that road users are tempted to use poorer roads in order to avoid it. Although over the years politicians have paid lip service to the need to address this problem, nothing has been done. Can any member of the panel give an assurance that the crossroads will be redesigned and made fit for 21st century traffic on this trans-European road within the lifetime of the next Parliament?
Roads. I personally can't make any guarantee, but I would do my best to make sure that the roads are safer. I had somebody ring me up the other day to say that there have been three fatalities on the stretch outside her house, and she's desperately trying to get something done about it. And I'm trying to get the highways to organise just some signs that will flash and to get people to slow down, because it's a long stretch and then a bad bend with a camber, and people are going off the road. So it's very hard to get these things done, but they are essential, and if I had the opportunity, I would do my very best to make sure that something is done, again, in the short term, but ultimately in the long term, in upgrading the roads and improving the crossroads.
How would you go about combining health and social care budgets so as to ensure that elderly and disabled people with health and complex health and social care needs are treated holistically and not just as a list of problems that need to be sorted out?
Currently, local authorities manage social care and the NHS manages health. We want to bring everything together under the control of the NHS and have a social care fund. We also want to fund coordinating services for older people in every county, combining resources from across the NHS, social services, community agents and the voluntary sector. No vulnerable person should feel isolated or alone, and this service will be proactive in identifying and assisting those suffering from loneliness. We also think that home care workers should have a better deal. Good home care starts with good home care workers who provide a lifeline to some of the most vulnerable people in our society. It's a difficult enough job to do at the best of times, with long hours and low pay and challenging role. Nobody should be paid less than the minimum wage because they're having to travel on their own time, and we won't allow 0 hours contracts either. Care workers are incredibly important in delivering social care.
Given the increasing volatility of international relations, can you explain why the UK would be better served by staying or leaving the EU?
I believe that as a sovereign nation, we could stay out of any military involvement, and certainly if we did get involved militarily in anything, we would have to put it before Parliament and get the consent of Parliament and the consent of the people. The EU wants its own army. If we're part of the EU army, we are one voice amongst 28. How much control do you think we would have? It's NATO that's kept the peace in Europe. It isn't the EU. In fact, the EU's meddling in the Ukraine has actually made the situation a lot more dangerous.
Last week, the Conservative Party proposed a policy to take many family homes out of inheritance tax. George Osborne was quoted as saying it would support the basic human instinct to provide for your children. Why is the same approach not applied to the calculation of care home fees, which in many cases, including my mother's, deny older people the chance to provide for their families, given that the calculations include the value of a family home?
I agree, it's very inconsistent that they would abolish inheritance tax but still keep the care home fees. We agree that the care home fees should be taxed and ideally capped, and we would ideally like to be free. But the fact of the matter is, at the moment, it's currently unaffordable. We do, however, have a plan to set up, as I say, a sovereign wealth fund into which tax revenues will be put in order that we can fund care, and hopefully, eventually, people will not have to sell their houses to pay for care fees.
Thank you for those who have put their questions so eloquently. I'd just like to offer a final round of applause to everybody, because I think we've heard some very gifted answers, and I hope that you have learned something that will inform your voting coming up next. So shall we give them a